Welcome back. This is the From A to Z podcast. I'm your host, PK Mukweni. Thank you so much for clicking on this video or on Spotify or on iTunes, wherever you consume this amazing advertising and communications content. Today, I'm here with a father, a fisherman, a founder of Halo, none other than Dean Oelschig. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's in that order: father, fisherman, advertising man.
Yes, I got it right. Thank you so much for your time, Dean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Right here on the From A to Z podcast, we're going to talk about how you found the ad game, a bit about your upbringing, what you're working on,
Cool.
what you think about the future of South Africa and everything in between. Are you ready to go from ad to Z?
Yep, let's do it.
Let's go. Dean, I know you hail from Peter Maritzburg, KZN side, right?
Actually, Transkei. Yeah, I grew up in the Eastern Cape in Mthatha, and then I moved to Pietermaritzburg when I was about 12 years old. I went to Maritzburg College, went to Stellenbosch University, and then I've been in Joburg for almost 20 years. So this is home. This is definitely home for me right now.
Wow, Maritzburg Boys
Maritzburg College.
It's a boys' school.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Yeah, good. I think the education system is. If you see Sir Ken Robinson, the late Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, he talks about the education system and how I think it's designed to make people not creative. I think, you leave school thinking you have to go into, you probably experienced this as a creative growing up. Yep. You leave school thinking you need to go to become a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor or an engineer. Those are the safe career paths. But, and I think I felt the same way. It was just a weird idea to go from that school into advertising. It just felt like worlds away. But Maritzburg's like a sleepy hollow. It's a small little town and a little bit conservative.
Yeah. And then let's talk about school. What kind of child were you in school, actually? And what was your upbringing like? Were you an energetic kid running around with some books? What were you into?
I've always been an observer. I've always watched and followed. I was never one of the cool kids. And I think... Yeah, there was nothing great. There was nothing special. There was nothing tragic. I think I had a pretty normal upbringing for I guess the situation. But yeah, man, this was the 90s. The 90s is the weirdest decade. There's very little cool shit that came from the 90s. So I grew up in that.
It might have been cool stuff that you're like, oh wow, that's cool.
I don't know, man. I went to Durban every weekend to Kings Park to watch the Sharks play rugby. That was what we did. And otherwise, if we weren't playing school sports, we watched sports. That was a big part of my upbringing. So
what sports were you playing? Cricket, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a little bit of cricket, water polo, squash. Rugby, if you go into Maritzburg College, you pretty much played rugby. I wasn't a very good rugby player, but I played it, and it was just a really cool place to go to school. A lot of mates, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of tradition, a lot of lessons to learn, and I'm very happy with where I went to school. It's a great school.
Yeah, and then speaking about going towards matric. How did you decide to study financial accounting at Stellenbosch? Was that the story? Was it as easy as that?
No, not at all.
Did you always want to be an accountant? I can't imagine a 12-year-old thinking, I want to be an accountant.
Yeah, I want to be an insurance broker. No, so the accountancy was the detour for me, not the other way around. I didn't go to accountancy and end up in advertising. I wanted to be in advertising and ended up by chance doing accountancy. Okay. When I was in grade 11, we got a week work experience. So this was in 1998, and I chose to come up to Joburg for the week. A friend of my mum's worked at FCB back in the day. For those old enough to remember, Lindsay Smithers is what it used to be called. Okay. And I came and worked at FCB for a week as a 17-year-old kid. It's what I wanted to do, and at the time FCB had the Vodacom accounts. Vodacom used to be blue, for those who remember.
Yes. With the meerkat.
This is before meerkat. This is Yabo Gogo days.
Oh, okay, yes. I was around there.
So Yabo Gogo days, they had the PlayStation account, and I remember sitting in some of the creative reviews watching these guys do some PlayStation work, and it was risque, man. It was you could say anything you wanted to in the 90s. And that was the heyday of advertising, right? It was TV was a big deal. We were advertising was probably at the cutting edge of I guess a liberal society, a diverse society in South Africa, and I think it's still the case. And it was just really, really cool. The problem was that I didn't think I was creative. I still don't think I'm the most creative person in the world, but I kind of have learned to deal with that.
Quite modest.
But I'd done accountancy, I'd done maths and science and English, and if you know, at a traditional boys' school like Maritzburg College, unless you did art, you weren't creative, right? And we know that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go to Stellenbosch University. I just fell in love with the university. I thought I love wine, and I love the environment that Stellenbosch University is. It's one of the last few university towns left in the country, and so I went down there, and I was actually there's no advertising degree, so I was like, the next best thing was marketing. And I started with a BCom marketing, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. But I'd done this subject of accountancy, and I really thought it was interesting. So I was like, well, it's not going to hurt to get an accountancy degree. So I did the accountancy degree, and the minute I got my degree after 3 years, I was like, okay, that's enough of accountancy. And then I started going back into what I wanted to do, which was marketing and advertising. Yeah. So I took the long road from there, and not the road I'd recommend to anybody.
Would you suggest people go to a advertising school just to get those basics?
I don't know. You tell me. Do you think someone who's 16 or 17 or 18 knows they want to get into advertising?
No, I studied marketing because I knew I wanted to be out and about and creating things. I didn't know I was going to be a creative or in advertising and communications.
I think advertising finds you.
True. Yes, 100%. It definitely found me. Yeah.
I think, and it did that to me as well. Like, I never knew what options I had to get into this. I never knew. I mean, looking back, I can give advice on what I think the quickest path is into it now, but I didn't know what it was then. Yeah. And then I just slowly found my way in, and like there's the story that inspired me is the story of Graham Worsop, who was a barrister, so a lawyer in England, and he got into copywriting, and after 6 months of being a copywriter, he's like, well, this sucks being a junior. I want to start my own agency, and he started the Jupiter Drawing Room. I hope I got that story right, but that was an inspiring story for me, and I borrowed from that, and like I felt it would be quicker for me to. I'm fast forwarding here, but I felt it would be quicker for me to do the work I wanted to do. It would be easier because I came from this like foreign accountancy background. It would be easier to start an agency than try. Get a job at one.
Yes.
That's basically the story.
Yeah, we'll get back into how the accounting affects or has a positive effect on your current business, which is
very few.
Which is okay. We'll get into that then. But scrolling back to childhood, what are some of your favorite ads, most memorable ads from your childhood?
Sure. Childhood's a long time ago. I mean, I think I've become a student of advertising over the years, and I think I've looked at a lot of like the classics. You know, Apple's 1984. Guinness made some great work. The Surfer. I actually think the Swimmer is actually one of the most underrated Guinness ads. So there's some great ones. There's some really dark horses. Like there's a Toyota Celica ad. Have a look at it. It's great. Called Looks Fast.
Is it still on YouTube?
Yeah. Still on YouTube. It's still on YouTube. So that kind of work was great. In a South African way, we had such a captive audience. People complain that the ads aren't as good as they used to be, but there were 3 channels to advertise on. You know, that was your only option. There was no digital. You had 3. You put a TV ad and you had 3 channels, and everyone was watching. And if you put an ad on TV, people watched it. And the brands the industries that could afford TV ads back then was like chocolate bars and ketchup and tomato sauce, and that's all different now.
And automotive?
Yeah, a lot of car ads, right? Yeah. Beat the Benz, the mouse ad.
Yes.
There was a whole era of BMW ads that just were excellent, which was I think if I got the history right, was all Hunter Scaris and then moving into Network BBDO. But they did some fantastic work. There was I remember the M5 ad was I don't know if it was a South African ad, but it was the M5 ad with the guy who the guy who drove the car that filmed the guy creating the speed record, the land speed record. Yeah, there were some great ads in the thing, and that always inspired me. I don't know. There was actually a radio ad that inspired me to get into advertising.
What was it?
It was an SABC radio ad. I'd probably heard it in 1996. I would guess it was when, and it was a radio ad which had a few people. It featured 2 people playing Russian roulette on the radio ad, and it went through the whole drama of them having a turn and them having a go and spinning the wheel on the revolver and then pulling the trigger and the gun not going off and this went backwards and forwards a few times until eventually the gun went off. And you hear the chair falling, and then it finished with, I can't remember the guy's names, but it was finished with, John. Yeah, Pete. You okay? Yeah. Aren't you glad we're on radio? And it was like, and the ad was just, imagine what you can do on radio. Yeah. And it was such a good ad. It was advertising. It was a radio ad advertising radio ads, and the power of radio advertising when SABC, specifically on SABC. Yeah. It was so brilliant, and it was clever and it was smart and it was witty, and it just sparked imagination in everyone. I remember sitting in a old Foxy bus driving with friends and his parents, and the whole bus packed out laughing when it came on, and
because you can imagine, you can see what
you can see the whole situation, and that was really inspiring. And then it just I just over the years just gravitated towards great work and just admired it and been jealous of it and wanted to do it, and that's just been the attraction for me.
Yeah. Fast forward to 2010.
Yeah.
Momentous, you always reference 2010 because I was in matric at that time.
Okay.
Super tough year, World Cup, so many breaks, but we still made it through. I got to see a couple games, but 2010 is when you started Halo, right?
That's correct.
Please take us back there. What made you make that decision? Why did you decide to go off on your own and start Halo?
Cool. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier briefly, there was the Graham Allsop story from Jupiter Drawing Room, and so just fill in the gaps from Stellenbosch University to 2010. I'd wanted to do marketing of some sort, so I got into wine industry and I did some marketing in the wine industry. It was super conservative and traditional back then, and it frustrated me no end. So I moved to Joburg. I got a job at a marketing agency called Penguin, which was a great learning curve because they did a whole heap of marketing activities, including a little bit of advertising. And so we got to launch Suzuki into the country in 2008. And it was a really cool learning on how to build the foundations of a brand. And then a friend of mine, he was the MD of Interbrand Samson at the time, and he phoned me and he said, "What's your next step looking like? We're looking to start an agency. We're looking to start an agency that could become a sister agency to us and can help communicate the brands that we create." And at the time, Interbrand were busy designing the brand for ATA, which was now Telco Mobile, and it felt like a good idea at the time. And I knew that I'd gone this like really long road to get to that point. I had no advertising experience. I didn't know if I was a writer or a strategist or a client service person. I didn't know where I fitted in. But I knew I wanted to be in advertising. I knew I wanted to surround myself with people who were creative and created great work. And then this opportunity arose, and we did it, and we stayed with them for about a year until we went independently. But 2010 was a wild year, man.
Yep.
We started Halo on April Fool's Day 2010, so 1st of April in 2010, and then May, June, July was the World Cup, right? And 10th of July, and we closed the agency for a month. Like we had built up a little bit of new business, and we'd done some work, and there were 3 people working at Halo, and we just closed the agency for a month, and we just went as many games as we could, and it was we just said, we've got this opportunity, let's just enjoy every part of what that World Cup. Yeah, and what a sad to think back now how great that was. I feel like that was the tipping point in this country. I feel like, did it get worse after that? What happened?
After that, it went...
Yeah, did it go downhill after 2010?
A little bit.
Can we go back there?
Right, yeah. No, I would definitely like to go back to 2010.
Can we just change a few things from 2010 onwards?
Yeah.
And then we started that. And in that year, we... Yeah, cheapers. Starting an agency is hard, man. And it feels like we only got a seat at the table 12 years later. Like, I feel like that's how long it took.
Yeah, speaking of 12 years later, you have been named number 2 ranked small agency by the Loeries for 2022.
Yeah.
The whole story, thinking about the journey, the challenges, all of that. I mean, it's another accomplishment, right? It doesn't make, it won't make your life maybe, but it's a huge accomplishment, right?
Yeah, as I said, it feels like we've got a seat at the table now. It feels like we have proven that we belong. I think to the industry more than to anyone else. I mean, my family don't really know much about that world, and my wife's a scientist, so she has very little insight and knowledge about the industry. So yeah, it's given us a seat at the table. It's given us the confidence that we belong, and it's given the other clients that we work on confidence that we know what we're doing. And I don't believe that the work we have produced, I don't believe the work that we're presenting, let's put it that way, is significantly better now than it was 5 years ago. I believe that the trust in us to deliver on that work is much greater now. And therefore we're getting many more clients who are approving it with the trust that we will be able to deliver on what we're presenting.
Yes.
Because there's that huge risk, right? There's that huge risk of client buying something that's scary, original, or brave. And I feel like because where we've got to now, we just have that trust in the client that they believe we can do that. Where I don't think we do it. I have a book of ideas. I could write 100 ideas down that we've presented over the last 13 years that never got made. Fantastic ideas, and I really do believe that we've had some great people working ahead. But to consistently deliver on that, you need clients to consistently buy your work.
Yes.
And the more you produce, the more you're going to produce.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's a lesson for anyone in this industry, a 40-year-old Hunter Scaris or a brand new agency or a brand new creative. The more you produce, the more you're going to produce. It's as simple as that. And yeah, so that like getting onto the top 3 small agencies is great. Next step would be number 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Next goal would be number 1. And yeah, it took 13 years to get to that point. So it's crazy. Like so the story of the agency though wasn't one of, it just took longer than I ever hoped it would, right?
Okay.
Maybe there's the 10,000 hour rule. I don't know. You're asking me.
Might be that.
Yeah, maybe it just took us 10,000 hours. Yeah. There's a really interesting idea around creativity in that your taste far exceed your abilities for a long time in your career. And we've all seen great work. We've all seen the Guinness work and Made of Black and the Surfer and the Canal Plus Bear ad and the epic splits. You've seen that. We've all seen that work, and we know immediately and intuitively and intrinsically. You just understand it's great. And you're like, I can do that. One day I'll do that. And then you find reasons why you haven't, budgets or clients or whatever. But the truth is, your talent or your ability isn't as good as your taste, and it takes many years. Your taste doesn't grow tremendously beyond what your taste is, but your ability to deliver that kind of work, I think, takes a long time to catch up. And I think the same is true for a small agency. And you just have to weather the storms. COVID, we could have quite easily have closed down in COVID. Like it was weeks away, and you just have to weather that, and you have to keep pushing through and keep trusting and keep believing and sticking your guns. And my brother will tell you this. My brother's the MD of Wonderman. He'll tell you that I never wavered. I just had a full, no doubts, 100% belief in creativity, and he used to blame me for being too puristic about it, and I just always wanted to stick to that, and I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad we stuck to ourselves, because I think a lot of agencies will start their journey with that dream. And if you go back and see the founding principles of a lot of agencies, they talk about, we're going to be brave or courageous or reinvent the way the advertising world is done, and we're going to partner and collaborate, and then 5 years later they're working on an incredibly boring brand, just producing lots and lots of work.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to shake that. If you become that agency, it's very hard to shake that. And I always understood that. So I've always been really regularly cognizant of the fact that we could be boxed in quite quickly or pigeonholed as a specific type of thing. And I'd never wanted to be that. So we've managed to just like keep pushing and keep trying to find the next big project, and the next big work.
So I think you answered one of my questions,
Okay.
which was,
Sorry.
I endeavor to eventually start my own agency, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line.
Cool.
So basically, I'm going to summarize it, but then you can correct me. Are you saying that you should be, you shouldn't have eyes that are too big for your stomach, basically? Grow at a sustainable rate?
Yeah, yes and no. M&C Saatchi Abel, when they started, they became very big, very quickly, very successfully. But Mike Abel had come from I think Australia, I think, and he had a huge amount of experience behind him. He did it at an older age. I mean, I if I look back, I don't think I had any right to start an agency. I was 20. I was 29. I had no right to start an agency at 29, and maybe we got a little bit lucky, but it didn't feel like it at the time. We worked bloody hard, and as I said, like, it took us 12 years to get to when I felt like I had a seat at the table, and there was like iconic pieces of work that we, like, for me, specifically for me, iconic pieces of work, like the things that shaped our agency, that we did, but we've done a whole bunch more in the last 3 years than we did in the first 10, and that comes down to clients' trust. Like, a client's going to trust you if you've got a track record, right? Personally or as an agency. And I never had it personally, so I needed the agency to have it for us to have that track record. Mike Abel had it at M&C. Pepe had it at Joe. He was at FC before that. Mike Shalit was at at Hunts before he was Network. Like, these guys had the track record. And we didn't have that, and so you need to find the breakthrough piece of work, and you need to figure out how to do that, and you need to find the piece of work that becomes your showpiece. And what happened for us is, like, we got this client in Kenya called CBA, which is a private bank in Kenya. It's basically the Investec RMB of Kenya, and we worked with them for 10 years, and they were our everything. They were still to this day, like, very good friends with the clients. He now works at Old Mutual in Kenya, and we had a great time with them. But because they were such a big client, and the risk of having one big client in your agency for so long, we overserviced them. But what ended up, and we did some really nice work. We did some really nice work on a brand called Loop, which some people have seen. But no one knew us in South Africa. No one knew who we were and what we were capable of. So we never got invited to pitches. We never got opportunities in a local territory. And then in 2019, we lost the whole CBA account. They merged with another bank, and they hired a Kenyan agency. And it was the worst. I remember exactly where I was when I got the call. It was the worst thing I think I've ever felt. Like, it was like a punch in the stomach. We had done everything for this brand for 10 years. We had poured our hearts and soul into this brand. But now, looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to us, because it forced us to refocus our attention locally and focus going after. We had no choice but to go after these clients. And this was November 2019. 4 months later, it was COVID lockdown.
Sure, yeah.
So we had 4 months where we just scrambled and hustled as much as we could to try to get clients. We did some projects for Yoko and
Pineapple Insurance.
No, Pineapple is recent. Pineapple's very recent. Pineapple,
we'll get into that.
We'll get to Pineapple. We actually did Naked before we did Pineapple.
Okay.
So we did. So in end of 2019, we did a project for Yoko to launch the Yoko Go, called The Next Small Thing, and we did a project for Mac, for Mac is for Everyone. And those two were the start of us building
a showreel
of the types of brands we wanted to work with. There was a great piece of advice I got like 6 years ago, and I wish I'd listened to it sooner. Do the work you want to do to win the client you want to win. Okay, so think about that. Yoko and Mac, having those on your showreel, who else would that bring to the table? Well, it brought Naked. Okay, we then lost the Naked account because they went in-house with the agency service. They've got an in-house studio now, and that brought us Pineapple, right? And the Yoko piece brought us other projects. So do the work you want to do that brings you the clients you want to work on.
That's the soundbite right there. That's the soundbite right there.
I mean, that's an advice for an agency owner, not a creative. But it's also advice for a creative. Like if you start at the end, start at your dream client, start at the dream job, start at the dream what you want to do, and then go, right, who do I need to get that client, and then who do I need to get this client, and who do I need to get that client, and then you just work back, and then you got to start somewhere, and it gives you an idea about where to start.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you can be too young to start. I don't think, but you've got to be patient, and you've got to take you got to take small wins. So what happened with us is because we didn't have the reputation, and because we didn't have, I didn't have the track record, and as I've mentioned, and it took us this 10 years, and we didn't have the local clients. We didn't have the big, everyone wants to go work on Nando's or Chicken Licken, right? And obviously, you know why. If you're a young creative, you want to work on Chicken Licken.
Yeah, I had the joy of doing that for a couple of years. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I still want to work on Chicken Licken.
Or at least one of the chicken brands,
Yeah.
Like you said, Naked brought you pineapple insurance.
Yeah, I need to go find, who do I need to work on?
Pedro's Chicken.
Yeah, Pedro's. Pedro's, I'm coming
Pedro's.
for you. Give us a call, Pedro's. Yeah, I mean, chicken, bro. What a cool thing to work on.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any of that. So what you'd end up doing is you take the clients you work on, and I remember the first campaign we did was for Monte Casino, which, if I look back, it was okay. It wasn't bad. We had like next to nothing as a budget, and we made it work, and we made no money on it, but we had a piece of work, right? And but you take the work the opportunities that present yourself, and you deliver the best you can do with the budget and the talent and the resources and the know-how you have, and use that to hire better talent, and then use the better talent to go after better work, and then better work to better talent, and until eventually you get to the point where you've got the talent, which I still think is the best and worst kept secret of creating a great agency, is talent. Everyone seems to know about it, but no one seems to do it properly. But once you eventually get the talent, you can eventually start producing the work consistently. And I said this to my team recently. This should be your soundbite. You're only as good as your next piece of work, not your last piece of work. Your last piece of work, Tiger Woods says he hits a shot and he forgets about it. The only shot that matters is the next shot. And it's the same with work. Like you're only as good as the next piece of work. People who do one great piece of work and then they're like, look at me, I'm great. You won't be welcome in my agency, because that should make you hungrier to do a better piece of work. And until you're David Droga, don't tell me you're a great agency person. Like you're only as good as the next piece of work you can do. Can you do it consistently, and can you do it again and again and again?
Yeah.
And can you do it for brands that are difficult to do it for? Like that's the real test. I think Yoko or Chicken Licken or Nando's, like those are really great brands. Apple. If you do a bad piece of work on Nike, you'd be fired, right? Yeah. If you were at Whedon. And but can you do a great piece of work for Liberty Life or sorry to single out Liberty Life on that, but
I don't know who the
Life
agency
Insurance.
is. We love you guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, who's the agency? I think it's Hunt's. But yeah, can you do a great piece of work on that? Like that's the test. And that's like the great agencies have always passed that test. Go see Droga 5's work that they did on Prudential. It's mind-blowingly good. It's excellent, and it's such a difficult client. Like, to talk about retirement in a creative way that's a challenge. Ask me the one about. Because it'll lead really nicely into it. But ask me about young people getting into agencies.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm going to come back talk about the Droga 5.
Yeah, we'll get there. So Demographica has got a stake in Halo now. Is the aim to scale up and go for even bigger fish?
I don't know what the Loeries small agency, medium agency, big agency cutoff was. I can't remember what the numbers are. But
50 to 100, 20, something like that.
I think it's less than 20 people, maybe.
Okay.
I have a number in mind of how big I want to be. The number is 30. And I'll tell you why. Are you a sports fan?
I am.
What do you watch?
Football.
Well, who's your team?
Chiefs, Man United.
Okay. I'm a Liverpool fan. We're hurting today.
Hurting badly.
2-0 up, man. 2-0 up to 5-2.
How do you do that?
Yes.
You guys, they say Klopp is 5-2 getting fired.
Exactly. It's not far away. I don't know who else they would get that's better though. I can't believe I stayed up for that last night. But a sports team has a size that it becomes manageable, that becomes that you can get the best performance out of players, you can have the best coach, you can have a great culture. And any sports team in the world is about 30 or less people.
Squad depth, yeah.
Squad,
Yeah.
right? Full squad, training squad, traveling squad.
Yes.
Even when we go to the Rugby World Cup, we take 2 players in every position, we have 30 players. And for me, like, less than 30 is a number that you can have great culture. Everyone knows each other really, really well. Great performance. You'll go to war for the other person sitting next to you, right? And that's become a huge part of our culture. Anything bigger than that, you need a second team, and then you need a second agency. So that's the number for me. So that's the goal.
Where are you now? How many
15.
15, okay.
15 people.
That's power. No, well done on that ranking. You guys are doing amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think So I had a goal last year to get as more finalists than the number of people we had.
Okay.
And we achieved that. And you've got to get a lot of finalists to win at awards. And I think that's a good goal for anybody. Like, if you want to win a Loerie, you got to have 10 finalists. Like, I think that's a good number. And so we set out to have more finalists than we had people, and we did that, which was a really cool thing for us. And like, that was like the real pat on the back last year.
It was a goal on your list.
Yeah,
You were like,
I ticked it. So I ticked the goal. Now we're going to do that again. I mean, now we have 5 more people this year. So we need 5 more finalists.
Get to number one. Guys.
But yeah, that's the way we kind of thought about it. So 30 is a thing. Demographica is a good platform for us to do that. We can scale quickly. We can leverage off the operational efficiencies without having to worry too much about that. It's like picking a fight, but you got a giant
big brother behind you.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's kind of what it's given us to do. It's like it's given us permission to just go harder at everything.
Yes. And we're like, you can go for the bigger fish, and they're like, do you have the support, the ability, and the actual people to do this job? Like, yeah.
Yeah, but we still, which is really nice. Like, it's a really good relationship. We're still totally independent, and we still can do our own thing and our own clients, and we're not part of them. We're just owned by them. And that's like
partially, not. It wasn't a full
51%.
51%.
They bought out my other 2 shareholders, old shareholders that we had, and so they bought them out, and now they're an active shareholder in the business, which is really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, no, good luck with the new setup and the operations, you guys. I mean, you're already on the list now. Like you said, you're on the map. You can only grow from strength to strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move into the fun part, or more fun part of this show. It is called All Up in Your Business. All Up in Your Business. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So I went to your social media channels, picked out a couple of pictures here and there that I would like to get some context on. Tell me where you were, what was going on there. Don't worry, it's a safe space.
You're not taking up old tweets from 11 years ago.
No, maybe I am, but it's not bad. Don't worry about it. It's a safe space. So firstly, something that we have in common, and I mentioned in the intro, this picture of you fishing is on Instagram, 2015, 21 December.
Yeah.
Small GTs are better than no GTs. Some Bazaruto fishing to kickstart the holiday. Mozam 15. What is it about fishing that you like?
Oh,
Why?
man. I have such ADD. And I think anyone in this industry needs to find an escape from it. You have to be able to switch off. You have to be able to recharge, right? And that's fishing for me. I mainly fly fish.
Okay.
So I mainly go fly fishing I do trouts and yellows and tiger fish. But that was an opportunity. I went with a friend to Bazaruto in Mozambique, and yeah, we went out on the boat one day, and I got a GT, which is the greatest fish in the ocean.
Yeah,
and
look at that.
And amazing. And it was a small one, and it totally destroyed me. And
How long did you fight it for?
it was probably like getting to the ring with Conor McGregor. It was brutal and it was quick.
Okay.
And I lost, but I got it. But yeah, fly fishing for GTs would be my dream. Like it happens mainly in the Seychelles, but that's the bucket list for me.
Okay, dope. Next one, something else that we have in common. It's always awesome when I meet a fellow vinyl record collector. Caption says, finally got the vinyl player hooked up and working. Preamps are a BITCH to find. This was in 10 June 2014.
Ironically, it's not working right now. It broke on me a month ago. And
What was it, the stylus?
No, there's no power coming to it. I don't know why.
Shucks.
It's not what's happening. Preamp's working and everything's working, but the vinyls, she's not running at the moment.
What was your first vinyl, and what is your latest vinyl, and why do you like vinyl records? I can tell you mine. My first vinyl was Stevie Wonder in Square Circle. Got it from my uncle's collection. I had about 5 minutes to choose, and that was the only one that I recognized, so I grabbed that one. What about you?
My dad used to have, and I still think he regrets this decision. My dad used to have thousands of vinyls, and when tape decks became a thing, and then CD players, he gave them all away. Cool. Maybe hundreds of vinyls, but he kept one. My mum gave it to him as a 30-something-year-old birthday present, and it's a box set with every Beatles album in it. The original, every Beatles album, original packaging in a box set, and I took that from him when I got the vinyl record player. The latest one would definitely be probably the Last War on Drugs album. It's my favorite band in the world. It's a rock band from the US. I still think have a craft to music that we haven't seen for many years. In rock specifically, there's just lots of instrumentalists and they write melodies and even when they perform on stage, they change the track to give the audience something new, which I find admirable. Why vinyls? We've lost the ability to collect.
Yep.
Vinyl records sat on a shelf, or your tape deck sat in a box, or your CD players sat in a rack, and collecting music was you bought a whole album. You didn't buy a single. Now it's too easy. You don't have to think about buying a single. You just press play on Spotify or Apple Music, and I feel like we've lost the real connection with music and vinyl. Putting a vinyl record on and sitting and listening to it and hearing that crackle, and it connects you to it a little bit more. It forces you to part ways with your money, And
oh my gosh, it's a very expensive hobby. Yeah.
But then you're I guess you're paying credit to that art, right?
Yes, 100%.
You're showing real support to the musician behind who made that, and I think we've lost that. I see that tape decks are coming back again. So are we going full 360 again? Are we moving to tape and back to CDs again?
Everything's getting retro.
I hope no one threw away their CD collections, because I think we all had one of those.
They are my CDs. I definitely threw them away.
Damn. Well, yeah, I still think vinyl's cooler than tape.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the last one I got was a Grammy winner actually a couple of weeks ago. Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Rel and the Big Steppers. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar there. Yes, very expensive hobby. Jeez, I don't know
ridiculous.
why I started this. Next one. Red, black, and white college, dressed in school uniform for the first time in 12 years. Please tell us what was happening in this picture. And most of all, please talk to the dean who was originally wearing this uniform. Dean at 17 or 18 years old. What would you tell him?
Find what you love sooner. I took too long from there to find fly fishing. I took too long from there to find advertising and creativity and knowing that's what I meant to be. I mean those are colors. That's a colors blazer, which I had academic colors.
For what's? I thought you were going to say
academic colors, and I was first team squash. Okay. So it's colors and
sports and academic.
Okay. And I think the third one was drama. I think I did drama. I know I did drama. I think I got colors, half colors for drama. But yeah, that's a colors blazer, and just find what you. Try everything to find what you love sooner. I was obsessed with giving away my secrets here. I was obsessed with women and partying and
nice.
And I just
as most 17, 8-year-olds.
Yeah, but I spent 10 years just doing that, and I missed out on, like, at 18 going and working as a fly fishing guide in Russia, or going to work on a yacht, or like just doing something, traveling when you're younger, whatever. I've got kids now, and like that's firmly out the window and whatever. But we're just finding your passion sooner. Like that's like such good life advice. I've got a younger sister. She's 23, and when she turned 18, I wrote her 18 things for 18th birthday, and I did the same thing when she was 21. And both those times I was like, find what you want and what you love sooner.
Yeah.
Just try everything until you find that stuff.
Yeah. I had an old mate back in the day when I was about 17, 18. He would disappear literally from the neighborhood for a couple of months and come back. So first time he left, he went to Mpumalanga to study to become a game ranger.
Yep.
He came back on his bike randomly to the park, like, yo, what's up, bro? Where you been? He's like, yo. Then he disappeared again, came back as a beekeeper.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so cool. Like and you can only do that.
True story, I promise.
You can only do that when you're 18 or 20 or whatever. Like, just go do it. Just go. You got enough time to study. You got enough time to find the things you want. And I think like it'd be interesting to do, and you meet a lot of advertising people. It'd be interesting to find how many advertising people studied advertising. And I don't think it's a lot. I don't think it's like an overwhelming majority. And I think it's because, again, as I said, like people study what they think they should, and then advertising finds them. And doing those things, becoming a beekeeper, becoming a game ranger. Like all my mates did game ranging after university, and I'm jealous I never did something like that.
Dope. Next one.
Yeah. This is bizarre.
Told you we should have sponsored Spurs. Now there's been a lot of talk about the tourism, I guess, ministry with this 300 million.
That was
rand.
after they beat City 3-1 though.
Yes, I was going to get to that. That was after. So for context, tourism ministry wants to spend 300 million a year on a Tottenham Hotspur's kit sponsorship, basically. Please tell us why. Okay, yeah, here's the full tweet.
Yeah.
Guys, British tourists spend more than 50 billion rand on tourism in SA a year, with everyday South Africans, B&Bs, taxi drivers, wine farmers, restaurant owners. The Spurs sponsorship is 300 million a year. If it increases British tourism by 1%, it more than pays for itself. Then a couple of days later, after Spurs won, you tweeted, told you we should have sponsored Spurs. So tell us about your thoughts about this. Look, I mean, 300 million a year is a lot. The country is in turmoil. There are a lot of issues, but it's a different ministry. It's not like it's the
Absolutely right.
electricity or education. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they have a budget, right? I think I try to search for it. I think it's about I think their budget's about 4 billion a year, depending on the resource I found. So 300 million is 10% of that. They have to spend the money somewhere. They have to spend the money somewhere around the world to market this country, right? And you have to market this country because tourism is such a huge industry in this country. Like
Yes.
we have, I think it's second biggest. I think it's the second biggest industry in the country behind mining. And it deeply affects the lives of millions of South Africans. Millions.
It's not like mining where it's a big corporation. With tourism,
absolutely.
it's like you said, the B&Bs, the taxi
absolutely,
drivers.
right?
Yeah.
You know, it just the spill down of a healthy tourism sector is massive for the rest of our economy, and especially after COVID, right? We had lodges that had closed down that didn't have guests for a year. Like, we owe something to the tourist sector in this country. We owe something to them. So they've got this budget of 4 billion rand. They have to spend it somewhere. To spend less than 10% of it on what is arguably the greatest sports property, the English Premier League, not Spurs, the greatest sports property in the world.
It's not Spurs.
Not Spurs, definitely not Spurs. My best, Warren Marcio in South Africa is a massive Spurs fan, so I give him a lot of grief about this. But I was in Cape Town last week, and I got into an Uber, and there was a guy with an Arsenal jersey with Visit Rwanda on his sleeve. Now, the jersey travels, right? Arsenal jerseys travel further than Spurs jerseys. That's also a truth. And maybe they should have focused on a Man United or a
So they also
Chelsea,
came through as well.
You know,
An offer, yeah.
and it probably would have been more expensive. But I just think it's, of all the things government does, very few of them, that they're either winning votes or they're just inept at their ability to service delivery. Sorry, I've got a real problem with government in this country right now.
I see that. Yeah, you level comments on DA, EFF, ANC, everybody.
I don't feel that there's a viable alternative either. So it just disappoints me. We have all this incredible leadership capabilities in this country, and no one is stepping up and saying, "Let's lead this country."
Yeah.
But this is the first thing in years that I've seen government do that. Look, maybe I'm naive, but maybe there's something dodgy about the deal. But that's the price, right? I think we all know that that's the price. And it's government doing something that has not themselves to benefit. It's the average South African stands to benefit from this. And it's like, it's one of the few selfless acts that I've actually seen come from government. And what I think the average, and I had to check myself on this. We don't realize how big an economy is. It's massive, like the billions and billions and billions. Like a 300 million rand is a drop in the ocean. If they spent that, if according to everyone's outrage, if they focused that on Eskom, they buy diesel for a month. Like, that gets us nothing. Like, that just keeps the lights on for a month. Like, a month down the road, we've spent that money, we have nothing to show for it. It's burnt.
The investment could way better be used.
Spend it on
a sponsorship, on an advertisement. At the end of the day, it's an advertisement, right? It's a billboard.
Well, it's a media, right? It's a media buy. You know, same. It's cheaper than the Super Bowl. An ad, a 30-second ad in the Super Bowl costs as much money. And like with Son being in like just take Son. He's opened up the entire Asian market to a Tottenham fan base. South Korea, I searched for this. I was like, how many tap on the computer? How many South Koreans are fans of? They've got 20 million fans in South Korea. Do you know how big the Asian market is potentially for tourism in this country?
If we convert, like you said, if we convert 1%,
that's just the British tourists.
Yeah,
that's just British tourism. Yeah. If we increase British tourism by 1%, the result of that, it pays for itself.
Yeah.
It was like, it was a no-brainer for me, and I'm not going to get into these kind of debates on Twitter. It's just not healthy for my mental well-being.
Something else there on Twitter that is actually the reason why I reached out asking for this interview was this tweet right here, speaking about the agency selection process. So I'll read it out, and then I'll give you the opportunity to maybe give more context to it, because there's a whole
thread.
Yeah. So it says, "Dear marketers, the agency pitch process is broken. I'm not sure if it ever wasn't. A short thread. If you're looking for a partner agency, one who will make incredible work for years to come, you're looking to hire the agency, not the work. What does that mean?"
Well, I mean the pitch work, right? You obviously, by hiring the agency, you're hiring the work that they've done before. You're hiring the ability of the agency to deliver great work. So, all the great agencies of the past in South Africa, FCB when I went to do my internship, or King James, or Network BBO, or Fox B2, or Jupiter, you just knew them. You knew what they were capable of. Why do you need them to go and produce a whole bunch of free creative work for your brand to prove that they can do that? They've got the proof, right? We know Steven Spielberg can direct. We know Messi can play football. Like these guys don't have to audition to continually to do their things, but yet for some reason we have to audition for it. And the best analogy I've got of this is like a restaurant. Like, you don't walk into a restaurant and say, "Excuse me, can I please have 3 meals? Because I need you to prove to me that you can produce food that I'm gonna like. Give me 3 meals. I'll taste all 3 of them, and then I'll eat the one I like, and then I'll
not pay for
the other 2.
Yeah.
Like, in what world? Like, why do we accept that? And there's so many other ways in which you can do it. Like I believe that our show reel is more and more going to start speaking for itself, and it should, right? As much as you're only as good as your next piece of work or your next project, the work you've been able to deliver consistently should show you what you're capable of. And then, like, a marketer is either wants a big agency or they want a small agency. Now, if they want a small agency, I would hope that we're on their radar. It's their job
to find the best agency.
Well, it's their job to know which agencies are out there.
Yeah.
I know what film directors are out there. I know what film directors are capable of. And when we get a board that we have to put into a TV production, I know exactly which film directors I have to go to. And for the record, film directors treat, and I also don't think that that's right. And we're working at the moment with a film director from Patriots, and it was a single bid. We made him do a treatment because it's part of the process, but we didn't make him pitch for it, because we believe that he was right for the job, and we know he's right for the job, and so we're working with him. And we don't have a client that has the nuts of this. We do not currently have a client that we won through a pitch. Not one.
Did they all approach you?
Various ways, right? We, as I mentioned, Naked brought their creative services in-house, and Pineapple found out that we were a free agent in that space, and they approached us and they said, "Loved what you did on the Naked stuff, and can you do some work for us on Pineapple?" And that's one example. Or we've done we've brought into a single project, and we've done really well, and we did the next project, and multiple different ways in which we've found our ways into different clients. The problem is also on the marketing side, though. They tick boxes, right? The bigger the client, the more likelihood, I think, that they'll go through a pitch process. I can't see ABSA procurement or telecom procurement just picking up the phone and just saying, just choose the agency you want, right? It's never going to happen.
Yeah, so there's a lot of red tape there.
Absolutely,
yeah.
But then go through the procurement process. But my point is about a creative pitch. Not there's still an agency selection process, and that still has to take place. But you don't need to ask the agency to do 3 weeks of free work. We're 15 people, right? We've got 8 creatives. Now I must take all 8 of those creatives off all my paying clients for 3 weeks to do work at risk on the chance that the client's going to like it. I have no opportunity to work with the client, to run things past them, to have work in progress tissue sessions unless I ask for them. And yet, I would love to know the number on this. None of the pitch work ever gets made either, because it's off-brand, whatever, because the guys don't have time to work with you. There's no relationship, there's no 6-month build-up for them to truly understand. Like the pineapple work we did took 6 months. 6 months of backwards and forwards, 6 months of different presentations, 6 months of options. And you don't get that time in a pitch process. You don't get the luxury of working with the clients. And the pitch process is like, it's exasperating the client-supplier relationship. It's saying, you're a supplier, here's a brief, do some work, and if we like it, we'll buy it. And it's bullshit. It's like, it's just song and dance. And I think that clients, agencies who do it a lot, or who do it right, are more lucky than good, because they've just managed to find the thing that the client wanted there and then, but they've had no chance to stress test that. So they've gone in with a pitch, and they've essentially become really lucky. They've struck gold, and now the client ends up buying the work, not the agency. Yeah. Whereas if they spend time with each other, by all means, date 4 agencies for a month. Just go sit. You'll get more. A client will get way more understanding from an agency if they come and they sit with the people that are going to work on their account, and they just talk shit for 4 hours.
Tissue session.
Not even tissue session.
Drinks on the roof.
Exactly. Yes. Have a lunch and discuss what you think about that industry that they're in. Call the agency in and go, what do you think about the car industry? What do you think the consumer is looking for in cars? And what do you think is going to make, like, understand their belief system, understand what they believe makes great ads, understand what they believe goes into producing great work. And then you'll find the agency that is aligned to you, as opposed to the one that comes in on the day, does a big song and dance, tap dances, puts some gimmicky shit up on windows, and impresses you on the day. And then more often than not, the team that worked on that pitch, you'll never see them again in a big agency environment. And then like 6 months later, you're unhappy and you wonder why. Like, well, I can tell you why. You didn't do the process properly at all.
We don't really know each other.
You have no idea who you're working with. Exactly, right? Yeah. And if great work happens through a partnership.
Yes.
No question, right?
100%, yeah. Comes from a brief, comes from the team just putting work forward because they know their clients. They've had those conversations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a client who's prepared to fight for the work, sell it in-house, back at head office. You know, a great marketer that produces great work has to go, and I urge everyone to go find the backstory on how the Cadbury's Gorilla ad was made, and the client who made it, and the difficulties he went to get that approved. But great clients that produce great work need to be on your side as an agency. They need to be going back to their CEO and being like, I know this looks like a bizarre idea, but trust me. Imagine the clients that told the CEO of Volvo Trucks that they were going to get Jean-Claude Van Damme to do the splits on 2 trucks going in reverse. Yeah. And he's like, what, like, sorry, we're a B2B brand. Yeah. We like rather do a direct mail. Like, imagine that sell, right? And that Jean-Claude Van Damme was the 6th one they executed. It was just the first one that went viral. And like that's like you got to have this like really tight relationship with the client, and you've got to develop that. And Haiti Brow is the CMO at Hollard, talks about this all the time. She says like you got to date. You got to date, and then when you choose an agency, it's like a marriage. It's like a commitment.
Yeah.
And you got to know that you guys can work together on that commitment. And we're not investigating that much time in that process to discover that. We're using intermediaries to kind of broker the deals, and it's just like no wonder the work's also shit, right? Like, you know, the IPA stat recently, 89% of all work is not noticeable or remembered.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, man. Like we've got an 11% pass rate at the moment as an industry, and we can all be better in terms of doing the better work. And it starts. There's so many. I'm not saying marketers are to blame. We're all to blame. Like we've got to all be better. But yeah, like if agencies aren't pushing back on that pitch process, then marketers are just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. That was all up in your business, all up in your business. So you see, you survived it. It was a safe space, right?
It was fine, safe space. Cool.
Yeah, cool. Let's start wrapping it up. I just want to talk about fatherhood and work-life balance and being a family man. How do you do it? 12 years later, 13 years later after starting your own agency, how do you make it work?
I think discipline. I think the industry's moved on from too many late nights and weekends and crazy hours.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah. It's pity.
Right? That's the thing. I was talking to some interns and like they don't get the extent of what it was even 5 years ago, but pre-COVID. But
I know, man. Again, as I said, 1998, I was at FCB, right? That was the sweet spot right there. We're disciplined, man. We're 9 to 5, and I'm at home with my kids, and I'm back home at 5, and until they go to bed. And if I have to do more work, I'll do it after they're asleep. But I think I still am guilty of the mobile device addiction, as I think anyone in the industry who works in media and social media is. So I'm trying to get better at that. And when I get home, I try to put it down and leave it until my kids are asleep. But yeah, man, I want to be a great father, right?
Yeah.
I think, as you say, you're about to become a father?
About to, yeah.
About to. Yeah, I mean, you'll see, like, it hurts how much you love your kids. Like, it just hurts. And you want the best for them. And I had a fortunate, great upbringing I had great parents, and yeah, I want to give the best opportunity for my kids, and that's really focused. And I think what I'm trying to do here in Bold is to make them proud and to give them the best life that they can, and
pay school fees as well in cricket boots.
There's this real thing about privilege, right? But isn't that the goal?
Yes.
Don't we all want to give our kids privilege?
Exactly.
Privileged positions, and we've got to work. We've got to work really hard to do that, and especially starting at an agency, it's a stupid, crazy, dumb, volatile, emotional journey, and I wouldn't have changed it for a minute, but to make it work is really, really hard. It's really, really hard, and we've touched on reasons and touched on things now, but we do it for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It's got to have a reason, and that reason for me is my kids.
We're going to wrap up right quick, but I just wanted to ask you to give a couple of words to the young people out there, even the people who have been in the industry for a while, or people who want to enter the industry. What should they look out for? What should they focus on? Be it a creative, somebody who wants to be in strat, or any other positions.
Do the work. I wrote some thoughts down on this because I thought this would come up, but I'm going to go through it, and because this is really meaningful for me, because I think that we have a problem with talent in this country. We've let a lot of the good ones go.
Overseas, you mean?
Overseas. Mm-hmm. You can name a country, and there's a South African leading one of those agencies.
Melusi Mhlungu, he went over to America. Oh man, I've been trying to get him to chat with us, and he's taken over. He's the one who did a Super Bowl year ad, like the year he got there or something, and went boom. So yeah, a lot of advertising agency people are going. Yeah,
the States, Canada, Germany, UK,
yep,
Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong. Like, name a country, there's a South African leading a top agency. I mean, the the chief creative officer of Droga 5 in London is South African. Alpha Kilo Bravo, or Alpha Bravo Zulu, whatever they call there. Like it's now, Jenny Glover's just been made CCO there. Like it's just everywhere you go, there's South Africans leaving and going overseas, and obviously there's other reasons for that. But my mission is to kind of hold this talent here. I want to create a global agency from here, and not a global agency, an agency that serves global clients. So instead of exporting the talent, instead of losing our talent to the world, let's hold on to the talent. And let's service clients overseas. We know we're good enough. There's no question we're not good enough. And it's I don't want people to come to us just because we're cheap, but we are cheaper, more affordable. So you can work on, you can only get the top agencies in London if you're a top client and with all the money.
Yeah.
But what about a mid-level client? Like a mid-level client in London should be using a South African agency. They could shoot ads in Cape Town with the best directors in the world and produce incredible work at a tenth of the price. My advice to juniors: appreciate the process and craft. Great ideas are fucking hard. There's my first swear word. Sorry. They really are difficult to come up with a great idea, and you have to be prepared to go into some dark places. Like everyone sees Kipchoge breaking the world record marathon time, but like no one sees what he's doing training in the background. Yeah. And it's the same thing with work, with great work. Everyone sees the guys on stage at Loeries. They don't know how long it took, how many ideas were thrown out, how often they had to go back to clients to sell that work, how many reverts there were, how often they crafted that stuff. Like no one sees that stuff. They don't see that. And
the personal effects of it, like how many times you got in a fight, coming home late, being on your phone, stressing about this piece of work that eventually lands you on that stage.
Yeah. No, I mean, like you don't see the back work,
you
right?
Don't see it,
it's in any creative endeavor. And so you have to be prepared to go into some really dark places to find the good stuff. Like TWA, Handler Scaris, back in the day, I've heard about it. I wish I'd done it, but they used to have, that used to be the training ground for creatives in the 90s. And you used to go there and you used to work. And if you had to write a headline, if you needed to write a headline, you had to write 300. Nowadays, no one does that anymore.
Didn't you guys do that for Pineapple? I think I heard it in one of your interviews or read it, that you guys did over like 100 and something maybe, and you guys are kind of just like sifting them out and putting them out as needs.
There's 100 live billboards. Okay, and everyone is unique. So there's 100 live pieces of creative.
Oh, none of them are duplicated in any of the spots?
When we got the media plan, and there were like 80 at the time when we launched, there were like 87 billboards. There's now a whole bunch more that's been added. There's now well over 100. Every single billboard is a unique piece of creative. Every single one is a unique headline.
Do you have a favorite?
The one that blew up was the drip one, man, and yes. Was the next billboard selling drip? We were just selling insurance, and that was really cool.
Have you seen our billboard in Hyde Park?
Oh yeah, the Inception.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what you call it. I was trying to. It's not comparative because it's the same brand, but it's an Inception billboard.
Inception billboard.
Yes.
I love the one that says 900 people who work at Pineapple recommend our insurance. What the fuck, Jim? I love 8 is the recommended number of words on a billboard. Yeah, there's some lovely ones, man. I like it. We just had so much fun with it, and I think like it shows in the work. Like it shows we had fun.
Yes,
shows we had fun with the client. The client is fun. The client brought their personality into it. They approved it. They loved it. They loved the process with us, and I loved working with them on it. And shout out to Nicole and Marnus and just great people as well. And that's so to get to 100, we wrote 500.
Shucks.
So
that's I thought I was wrong maybe. Yeah. So it was 500 and you sifted it down to 100.
Yeah, we still keep writing them all the time, okay. And we have a live document with just loads and loads of headlines, and you have to. Paul Bennicos used to tell me this. You have to dig, and it was a lesson I think he got when he was at Hunts. You have to dig the bottom of the barrel. You have to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Dig, and you're going to get to the bottom of the barrel. It's going to look empty, and then you have to keep scraping. And until you get to that point, like you're not going to find the gold.
You haven't cracked it until you get there. Yeah.
Okay, let me get some short fire advice. Over your career, be patient. I really worry about people who call themselves creative directors at 28. They haven't gone through enough to be a creative director at that point. Be patient. Be happy to be a creative director at 40 or 45. You're going to produce a lot of crap before you produce the good stuff. Your taste is going to exceed your talents. Learn from everyone. Every single person you meet, learn from them. And to do that, you have to leave your ego at the door. Imitate before you innovate. You don't become the next Jimi Hendrix overnight. If you want to be the next Jimi Hendrix, you learn how to play Jimi Hendrix. And then you learn how to do your own thing and you bring your own style to it. Same thing with advertising. Read every book you can. Find out who the best, if you're a writer, find out who the best writers are in the world and study their work. Understand how they got to the point. Understand their insights and the way that they thought. If you want to be a writer or a strategist, go listen to comedians and listen to the way comedians write. They're incredible at insights. You're only as good as your next piece of work. I've said about this. Creativity is a muscle. The more you make, the more you can make. So train it. Bad creatives get too precious about the good idea they have because they feel they won't have another one. Great creatives aren't precious about the work they have because they know that they'll have a better idea. And they appreciate people pushing them. So take the criticism, take the
no's,
take the feedback, take the no's, and just know that that's someone giving you an opportunity to be better or do better work.
Yeah.
But also trust your gut, trust your instincts, take risks. I think that's really important. It's weird. I know you want to wrap up, but last point. We've done four campaigns that I've loved in the last 2 years. One was for Pam Golding, one was for iPhone, one was for Yoko, and one was for Pineapple. And 5, an exclusive box. I never knew when we launched any one of those which was the one that was going to succeed more than the others or blow up. I thought it would be the Yoko one initially. It ended up being the Pineapple one. You don't know. And you're nervous when you put work out. You're going to get criticism all the time, and just take it. It's going to come. But if you're prepared to, if you want to constantly push the envelope, you're going to get people who love it, but then you're going to have people who hate it.
Yeah.
You can't have love without hate. But what you don't want is indifference.
Yes, exactly.
Indifference is just indifference. I get so irritated when we put a piece of work out and everyone's like, okay, that's nice.
Feel something.
Feel something, damn it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just feel something.
Exactly.
It drives me mad. And we got a new project coming out next month, and I think it's going to be the same thing. It's going to if it doesn't have the hate, because with love has the hate, so it's going to have the love. Mm-hmm. But I just hope people feel something on it. I really hope people feel something.
Yeah. You obviously put so much of yourself into it that you want people to feel something about it yourself. Yeah.
Well, that's the creative process, right? I think every creative puts something in themselves in it.
Yes.
And that's why do you have to study advertising to be great at advertising? No, I think advertising is about perspectives and knowledge and insights and worldviews and the best creators you meet are guys who have opinions on American politics and the Russian war, as well as natural gas in the Karoo or
fracking.
Yeah, or what Shell's doing off the coast of the Transkei, or Eastern Cape, and you got to have a diverse worldview, and that allows you to have multiple perspectives, and that informs your work.
Yeah.
That's interesting. People make interesting ads. It's
guys,
simple as that.
make sure you travel. Use all your money on traveling.
Yeah.
Go places, eat different places, speak to different people. That's what builds this wide worldview, which we are looking for in advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite creative documentaries I've ever watched is Chef's Table on Netflix, and it's because there's such great parallels between the creative process and what we do and what chefs go through to produce a meal. It's essentially we're taking two obvious things that people understand on their own, and we're putting them together for the first time, and that's the ingredients, putting them together for the first time in food, but great ads is like that. That's what ideas are. What's your favorite ad?
The last one I saw, it's not my favorite, but the last one I saw, it was an Afrikaans ad. I think it was an insurance ad of some sort, and it's the family, and he's saying, this is my twins, Bella and Bella, and that's, I don't understand Afrikaans that well, but I got it, and I would love to rewind it, but I can't because it's a YouTube bumper ad or something.
Yeah, it's for one of the hotel chains.
Is it a hotel? One of the booking websites.
Yeah, the Afrikaans booking sites.
Something that's right. Yes. Yeah, I love that, and I'm not Afrikaans, but it spoke to me still because we know these places, Bella, and all of the other things that they were mentioning in the ad.
But that's just someone who's taken children's names and places in South Africa and slapped it together, and that's an idea, right?
The insight there is so crazy though. Yeah, and they knew that people would get it, right?
Absolutely, and even people who don't get Afrikaans, and that's what creativity is, and so the more the more access to resources you have at your disposal, the more ideas you're going to be able to create. And so, yeah, broaden your knowledge and just open yourself up to multiple perspectives and yeah, get out of advertising. Totally. If you want to make great ads, get out of advertising. I think that's always been our thing. We've always been almost outcasts, if I could say it that way, because I never came the traditional route. I never worked at the big agencies,
Right.
and we've always tried to hold on to that a little bit. I thought of like, what if we didn't name it Halo, what would we name it? And like weird or
Spelt weirdly.
yeah, spelled weird, like something like that, like or outcast, or like my favorite agency at the moment globally is Uncommon, and I just love that name as well. Like they're just doing some excellent work. But yeah, like be weird.
Be weird, yeah. But also, you also speak things into existence. So if you call your agency trash, nobody's gonna hire you. Thank you so much, Dean.
True. Thanks, bro. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your time. This was one of my favorite sit downs. Very insightful. We learned about your upbringing, Maritzburg Maritzburg College. Went to Stellenbosch, studied accounting. Jumped into the agency environment. Started your own agency, Halo, in 2010. 13 years later, ranked at number 2 by the Loeries in the small agencies. We spoke about advertising in South Africa. We spoke about the finances and tourism and the value that it would bring us. We spoke about everything. Do you think that we went from A to Z?
Absolutely. I'm going to get some hate about the Spurs thing, I'm sure, but I'm sure that's going to still happen. But yeah, I think we went from A to Z. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Awesome.
It's been really cool.
Thank you for your time. This has been the From A to Z podcast. I've been your host, PK Mukweni. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube.
From A to Z, it's plain to see. This podcast is about people in my industry. Writers, designers, social media managers. Don't forget the data miners. HRPR, find out who they are and how they made it this far. From A to Z, talk about your family, talk about the goals you reach, talk about the plans you see. Let's get it. Welcome aboard. I'm your host, PK Mukweni, and this is the From A to Z podcast.